15 unique bourbon distilleries within 45 miles of downtown. That's what you can expect in Lexington, Kentucky, the bourbon lover's ultimate playground. Lexington is the perfect hub for your bourbon-infused vacation, and VisitLEX will help you create the perfect itinerary along the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. For more information, go to VisitLEX.com, that's VisitLEX.com, and discover all the ways to enjoy the horse and, in our opinion, bourbon, capital of the world.
With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
From January through March, in honor of MLK Jr. Day, Black History Month, and Women's History Month, Uncle Nearest Premium Whiskey is teaming up with our account partners and our Uncle Nearest Whiskey family to raise up to $1 million for historically black colleges and universities through the sale of old-fashioned cocktails and Uncle Nearest Premium Whiskey products. Visit oldfashionedcocktail.com to learn more and to join the Uncle Nearest HBCU Old Fashioned Challenge today.
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me live tonight in the Bourbon Life Studios, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing down there, buddy?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing great. How about yourself? You doing all right?
I'm doing great. You know what? You look so good on that mic with those new mic plates on there that are branded for the Bourbon Life Podcast. It's so nice to look down the table and see your smiling face and that beautiful mic plate at the end of that mic. It reminds me what podcast we're on.
Yeah, good thing that nobody else can see them.
Yeah. Oh, whatever, dude. Come on, man. They're cool. But other than that, are you doing okay? You doing good?
Yeah, I am. I'm freezing my buns off.
I was gonna say you got your beanie on tonight again. So it's a cold day in Lexington, right?
No doubt about that. And I'm not sad at all. But I'm not sitting in front of the fireplace. And the reason I'm not sitting around the fireplace is we got a great live guest with us tonight.
That's right.
So we're around the big table. But anyway, I'm doing good. So you're doing great? Having a good week so far?
Yeah, so far, so good. So I think we probably need to jump into our show. Of course, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast. This week we are presented by VisitLEX. So we appreciate their sponsorship, appreciate working with them, love what they're doing here to promote Lexington as well. So check them out online. And a huge thank you to all of our other sponsors. So with that said, though, Matt, you want to tell everybody who we have with us?
Absolutely. He is half of the Lee and Hayley Show, and you can probably guess which half. Joining us this afternoon, morning, evening, whenever it is you're listening to the Bourbon Life Podcast, Lee Cruse. Lee, welcome on to the show.
Thank you, boys, for allowing me into the basement. I appreciate it.
I was going to get a little jar or bottle of lotion and just set it there and tell you that.
Yeah. It's not that often I get an invite to come to someone's basement and just sit around and chit chat.
Yeah, and drink bourbon. It's kind of awkward when you talk to people and you're like, "Hey, would you like to come to my house and come to my basement and hang out and drink bourbon, sit around the table?"
It's a nice basement. It's not foreboding. I mean, it's very warm, inviting.
Nice
and,
lights, right?
You got mic plates.
Yeah, mic plates.
If you didn't have the mic plates that said the Bourbon Life Podcast,
It'd be creepy, right?
Yeah, very creepy.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, you know what? We've got something poured up, but Lee, I did some research for this show, and I've heard that one of your favorite drinks, and I'm just going to get this out, and offer it up to share with you on this first segment, if I could open the bag. But I've heard that you
make a little more noise over there.
Man, give me a break, man. I'm doing the best I can here. I'm just going to rip the bag open. But I heard that this is something that you really enjoy, Lee, so I got you a whole jar.
Okay.
Just so you can.
Oh, yes.
You can have those during the show.
At
will. I've got toothpicks for you as well.
At some point, it would no longer be a show. It would be a first responder call.
Yeah.
Old Smoky Tennessee Peach Moonshine.
There you go, with peaches in it. I've heard you. I heard somewhere that you enjoyed that and had an episode with those.
There was a night in Chattanooga yeah. I did.
Wasn't there a song about that one night in Chattanooga? No, maybe not.
I've had a couple nights in Chattanooga in the past.
Well, pardon me, boy, is that the bathroom?
Yeah, there you go.
Because I need to get there.
There you go. Well, let's talk about what we actually do have poured up this round. So this round, I do know that one of your favorites is the Woodford Double Oaked, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So This is the 2022 edition of it that I was fortunate enough to pick up this year. I believe it came out at the end of January. It fluctuates from year to year. It's either January, end of January, beginning of February, depending on what's going on, supply chain issues, whatever. And I usually try to pick up as many bottles of this as I can track down. Yeah. It used to be you could go out there and buy an entire case of 12 on a day and then go back the next day and buy another case of 12 if you wanted to. But now it sells out within about 4 or 5 minutes. So, or not 4 or 5 minutes, but 4 or 5 hours generally. Kind of crazy how fast it sells out. But Matt, you want to talk about the nose on this one, man? Have you had a chance to?
Yeah, I have. This is, of course, the Double Oaked is kind of like dessert in a glass. Some might say real kind of that smoky, toasty, s'moresy, campfirey nose on it. A lot of graham cracker, a lot of marshmallow, great oaky sweetness on it as well. But there's also something, it's got just like a little whiff of something bright with it too. Like almost, it's not like mint, but there's some sort of like a bright sort of awakening, zesty aroma.
Chloroform.
Breathe deeper, Lee. Yeah. Never mind the rag that it's served in. Yeah. Just breathe a little deeper. But but this is 72-18-10. Yeah. 72-18-10, right? So it's 18% rye. Mm-hmm. We had Chris on the show. Of course, we just had Elizabeth on the show, and we talked about the Double Oaked last week. And we had Chris on the show. We talked about the Double before with him, and it's kind of a unique experiment that they do because this is a normal Woodford Reserve that's around 6 to 7 years old, and they take it out of the original barrel and they put it back into that secondary barrel that is heavily toasted and lightly charred. And they leave it in there. The Double Oaked is generally 1 year, up to 1 year, and this one is actually up to 2 years. A lot of people, I think, just expect, for me, I just expected it's going to be much sweeter, much more like a dessert. And last year's was really spicy, which kind of threw people for a loop.
I was one of those.
Yeah, were you? Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this one in terms of the nose? I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you pick up?
Well, I'm not a savant like you guys. So
I'm one of those idiot savants. Right?
My taste isn't as advanced as you guys, but so I fell in love with this. A buddy of mine, who's the show's publicist, Dan Kett, he found a barrel pick that Carson's Restaurant did, and it was called Snake Eyes, is what they named it.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Have you had this?" And it was my first experience with any kind of double oaked anything, as far as a bourbon goes. And I was like, "What? What have they done?" And we loved it. And so that's sort of, and that was during the pandemic, and essentially my attorney was running a speakeasy. And because you weren't allowed to gather.
That's right.
And so we had a case, and the three of us would get together, and it was wonderful.
Yeah,
and we loved it. So and you're right. The way Matt described it to me, it's candy like. It's all those notes of graham crackers and caramelized and all the things that. It's like a dessert.
I agree. It's got that brown sugary. I get a little bit, and to me, Matt, I pick up a little banana, like a banana pudding almost on this one. I don't know. Every time I drink Brown-Forman stuff, though, I think I'm looking for that banana note off of their yeast. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's just me looking for that, but it's got that brown sugary sweetness to it. But yeah, it's something on the nose for sure. It's something that I love, and it is dessert. So it's kind of weird to start with this 90.4 proof, though. So it's a nice proof point. All the Woodford expressions, except for the barrel proofs. Everything they put out is 90.4 proof. Every special edition they put out, every distillery series that they put out every Masters collection. I think it's 90.4. Kind of weird that they do that. The rye, I think everything they put out is 90.4 proof.
So to ask a question to you boys, would this not be a great introductory bourbon for someone who's just to the game and they're trying, I don't know if I like bourbon, I don't know what to me, this would be the best way to take them.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, my feeling on that, because, and we talked with Chris about this on the show, is that, you know, he said originally it was out of balance. And then I asked him about that again. He's like, well, I didn't mean to say out of balance, but it doesn't, it really skews towards those sweet notes, that brown sugar, that toasted marshmallow, all of that. So I don't know if you were trying to get somebody into bourbon, if you gave them that and then you moved them on to something like another good bourbon, like Elijah Craig Small Batch, which is a great bourbon, but it's not like that because it is the balance of flavors between caramel, vanilla, oak, all those other things. But I mean, I would probably give somebody that and say, here's a nice way to start. But just be prepared, you know, if they go on to something else, that it's not going to be quite as sweet and friendly. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think you're saying it right there. This would definitely be like, oh, no, honey, you'll love bourbon. Trust me. You know, try this, you'll love it.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll
right.
become a bourbon drinker.
There you go.
And then all of a sudden, well, nothing's like that first one I ever had, babe.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can set that bar pretty high, Lee, and then you're going to disappoint people after that, maybe.
But
welcome to my life.
That's I was going to say that's the arc of my life. I mean, that's the way everything begins. Oh, this is great. Gambling was that way. You know, you sit down at the tables. How do you lose money?
How did it happen?
Yeah.
No doubt.
That reminds me of the first time I ever went to Keeneland. Walked out of there with a little bit of money, and suddenly I thought I knew it all. I thought I wrote the book on gambling on horses.
You're like Zach Galifianakis, right?
Sure enough. I was humbled the next few times I went back there. But
yeah, I'm sure about that. So, Lee, let's talk about you. That's what we like to do in the first round. We always like to talk about our guests. So why don't you take some time, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from originally, and how you got into doing what you do.
Well, after the first patient died, they said it may not just be the drinking. He may not have any talent, so I left medical school. I was born in Winchester, grew up there. I had a short stint in Carlisle, Kentucky, because my dad's a basketball coach, so I moved with him my senior year. Yeah, and lived in that area for a little bit. Went to Maysville Community College. I was there at a 2-year school for 3. That's the kind of academic career I had.
Yeah.
And then I went to EKU until they said, we've had enough. And they asked me to leave. And then I got in the radio business, and I was doing that for a long time. I was a DJ, did stand-up comedy. And then I got a phone call from a lovely lady, Mary West, said, would you like to be on television? She was at a comedy show. And I said, yeah, sure. Why not? And they put me on Channel 18 doing mornings as the goof-off guy.
Right.
And then I just was there for a very long time until they asked me to leave. And then I launched this last enterprise with Hayley, who I met at WLEX. And, we became partners and friends. And, I bring the beauty and she brings something.
She's not here to defend herself tonight either.
Well,
right?
that's her fault.
That's her fault. That's exactly right.
If she wanted to say something different, she could.
She brought it on herself tonight.
And so I launched a production company. We hired people, and we took the show that we thought we were trying to build there, and when we were building, and now we own it, and it's growing, and we're having a wonderful time making people laugh, and and just being goofy and staying away from things that make people sad, or at least we try to. And it's not just in Lexington now. We're in 13 different cities throughout the South, hopefully to add a few more in the spring. And it grows, and we're doing well. I mean, we're the #1 show in our time slot in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, North Carolina, which is a bigger market than Lexington, actually. And #1 in Bowling Green, and we're doing well in Mississippi. We got 2 markets there, and North Carolina. We're in Wilmington as well, and Georgia, Macon. So
I saw that on Instagram. I think it was today or Facebook. You guys had to post that you guys were number one in those markets.
Yeah,
So-
we just got ratings back, and it's it's great to hear that that people appreciate what we're doing, and we're just trying to be authentic, really.
Yeah. Now, Lee, I'm going to tell you, the funny thing is, I remember you back as a DJ, back for the local radio, Z103.
Z103, yeah.
Yeah.
That was with my buddy Karen Czar. We did mornings.
A long time ago. And at one point, you did a ticket giveaway. And anyway, you did a ticket giveaway for Dave Matthews Show.
Yeah.
And the caller, whoever called in, the mission was to sing Dave Matthews, but sing it like a donkey.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was the successful caller.
Oh, was that you?
That was me.
You won.
And I won tickets to the Dave Matthews concert by singing Ants Are Marching like a donkey. Yeah.
I kind of remember this contest, and the reason I invented that is because the style of Dave is reminiscent of a hee-haw, hee-haw, hee-haw. You know, and I hear that donkey when, like the Ants Marching song. So, yeah.
Yes, exactly right. So I was a successful winner.
Yeah,
and embarrassed myself on Z1.
Well, I don't feel bad about drinking your bourbon then.
Not at all. Speaking of the bourbon, let's go back. Let's talk some more about the palate and the finish on this one, Matt. What do you pick up on that as you take another sip, man? I guess I timed that question inappropriately.
You have a way to do that.
I know,
don't
man.
you?
Sorry about that, Matt.
It definitely brings that sweetness that comes through on the nose. It's got those toasted, roasty flavors, a little more malty and kind of chocolatey on the palate as well. But the rye comes through too. There's definitely the spice. I don't think it's as spicy as maybe years past.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of peppercorn. The heat comes through. Of course, those really familiar cinnamons, vanillas, a little caramel, kind of a drying graham crackery taste as well. But yeah, there's something a little brisk on it as well, kind of spicy.
So, Lee, what do you think about this one in terms of the spiciness? Do you think it's as spicy as what other ones are?
What I taste more than anything is regret. And as I swallow, I don't mind it so much. I want to be as refined as you guys. I'm what the heck are these guys talking about? Peppercorn.
Listen, Matt is the master in terms of the palate. We get master distillers and master blenders and tasters on the show, and he starts giving his notes. And these guys, you can just see it in their face. They're just like, wow. And I mean, Matt, I could go back and tally up. I need to do that at some point. Go back through the shows and tally up how many times someone has said, "Oh my gosh, Matt, those are great notes," or they're writing notes as you're giving them your tasting notes.
That would be a humongous waste of your time.
Oh, whatever, man. But no, Matt does have a tremendous palate from years of working in the restaurant industry and working in a bakery. So, which is great because you can associate those smells and those aromas with what you've experienced in life. Much more so than I can. To me, it's like sweet. It's like a campfire. It's a marshmallow. Matt's like, I get subtle nuances of nougat, and I get a little bechamel sauce. Or no,
he makes it sound wonderful.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just gotta say it confidently enough. People get on board with you. That's what I've been saying for 4 seasons of this podcast.
That's right. You say it with confidence, and people will believe you.
Yeah.
So now, Lee, it seems like I read or heard somewhere that initially, when you and Hayley, what kind of sparred this whole interest in each other, had some reference maybe to Blazing Saddles. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much launched the entire enterprise.
Can you talk about that?
Sure.
That's just kind of funny.
So when they hired her, I was well established.
That's right. You're a Lexington legend, Lee.
And they bring this kid in, essentially. And she was from Tennessee. She came from the Knoxville market, but she grew up in Nashville. And it wasn't very long that we hit it off, and we had we realized we had a lot in common as far as our taste. But there was nothing compared to the sort of epiphany and the eureka moment I had when I'm over at my desk, which is, maybe 10, 12 feet away from her. And she is mumbling to herself, and I hear her say the phrase, "That was lucky. We almost lost a $400 hand cart." I stop what I'm doing immediately.
Yeah.
Because, to me, Mel Brooks connects me to my childhood. I mean, that movie in particular connects me to my father, and my dad would laugh at those movies. You know, the reason I do what I do is because I want to make my dad proud, and my dad seemed to have such a proclivity to enjoy comedy, whether it was Letterman or Mel Brooks or Johnny Carson. And so I would, in those days, you had 3 channels, and once a year, Blazing Saddles would appear on CBS or something like that. A very edited version, but nonetheless. So I studied that. That was, you know, how I wanted to become. Was, you know, I wanted to do this. And for her to say that, you know, at somewhat younger than me, not as much as she likes to make out, but I stopped what I was saying. I said, "Are you quoting Blazing Saddles?" And then she said, "Yeah, that she grew up and her dad did the same thing to her, you know, and she became a student of that. Plus, she's got some photographic memory. It's almost cheating with her. She can memorize things. Yeah, really quickly.
Okay.
Which is it's a benefit for me because, like, if we're interviewing you, I don't have to work. Because you will say...
It's like you, Matt. Oh, I'm just
yeah. Well, she will know both of your names instantly. I have forgotten your guys' names.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know your all's names.
Yeah, just give me some more bourbon.
Right. So she's got your names. She's got the name of the business. She knows it's the Bourbon Podcast, the Bourbon Life Podcast. She knows how many subscribers you have. She knows all of this instantly as soon as you tell her.
Wow.
And retains it until... Well, no, she never loses it because that's why I always lose arguments to her. Because she will bring out court documents that said, no, on April 2nd of 2021, you said this.
Right. It's like being married.
Yeah, it is, very much so. But again, and that's why I had an affinity for her. And then I started to pitch a show that I wanted to do. And I thought, I think, you know, because we realized we had some sort of what everyone else describes as chemistry, but we had this magic together. And so I started to pitch this show, and at the time, the general manager of the station, Pat Dalby, he allowed me to do it, and we got on the air. And then the company that bought us, that actually unraveled it 2 weeks later, they knew what they had because they said to us at a meeting I had at Churchill Downs, this is sort of hilarious in a way, this company out of Cincinnati that ended up firing me not long after, they brought me into a high-level meeting and said, we're going to make the Lee and Hayley Show national.
Oh, wow.
We think you guys have tremendous talent, and we're going to make sure all our stations pick it up.
Wow. I mean, that's huge, man.
But you know, whether it's divine providence, the good Lord, whatever you want to call it, you know, I am so grateful because they would have owned us.
Right.
And now we own our own product. Yeah, I have to build it baby steps, but nonetheless, it's much more enjoyable doing it our way, the way we want to do it. And we thank goodness because of the creative people we have around us, we've been successful.
Yeah.
And we're growing.
Well, that's
so we're
great.
lucky.
Yeah, very, very lucky. And we can talk some more about that in round 2. But tell you what, we're at the end of round 1 here. So let's get final thoughts on the Double Oak 2022 edition. Matt, what do you think?
I think it's excellent. I actually don't believe it to be, for me, as sweet as just a regular double oak.
Yep.
I think it packs a little bit more spice.
Yep.
Than just a standard double oak.
Which you like. I mean, you like that rye spiciness.
That's fine with me.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Lee? You a fan?
I disagree with everything he said.
He's wrong. Yeah. Just tell him he's wrong. But
that guy is wrong.
He looks good sitting behind that mic, though, with that beautiful mic plate.
You know, I'm going to be. Can I be sacrilegious and ask you guys?
Yeah, man.
An apocryphal question. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to ask this question that should never be asked on this podcast. What would you guys mix this with?
Oh. My answer to that would be the air that's in this empty glass.
No, I would never mix anything you guys have here. But if I do mix a bourbon, then here's my little tip before we get. Well, I'll do it in round 2.
Okay, yeah.
I'll do my mixer tip in round 2.
I think that'd be a great idea, okay. Lee. Great. All right, so everybody sit tight. We'll be back with more with Lee Cruse, one half of the Lee and Hayley Show, in just a minute.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky. Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they called Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back for round 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. Live tonight in the Bourbon Life Studios, sitting around the flights of the round table, as Matt likes to call it, as he fidgets down there with his microphone. Matt, how you doing down there besides fidgeting, man?
I'm good. Hard to keep me still here.
You're the master fidgeter. I swear to God you are, dude. It's like I've never seen anybody fidget more.
I have a hard time staying still.
You got a lot of energy. It's like pent up, right? You just got to let it out.
That's right. If I stay still for too long, I don't know, I grow dust or something.
You're going to explode or something, right?
Yeah.
Which would not be good. We do not want that to happen.
Fall asleep or something.
At the table, Matt, at all, man. You doing all right? You
Yeah,
hanging there? All
I'm
right.
doing great. How about yourself, Mark? How are you?
Man, I'm living a
How have you
dream,
been?
man. I'm living a dream. I'm drinking bourbon with friends and having a great time, man. So it's a good night. Happy to be here. We got a great guest. You want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Absolutely. Back for round 2 is Lee Cruse, behalf of the Lee and Hayley Show. And we've got him in here. And Mark, what do we have poured up?
Well, you can let Lee say hello.
Well, on behalf of Matt, we hope your friends show up soon.
Yeah. I mean, I sit down here in the basement by myself often, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know. Not even the cats are
But
down
Matt
here.
and I will hang out until they do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you guys can drink whatever you want. You have carte blanche to drink whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, it's not a creepy basement because there are mic plates. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
That really spruces up the place.
uptown.
I'm just telling you, I'm telling you. I'm going to see if I can get a wrap for the back of my mic over here, my Elvis microphone.
You need a flag. It's what we call it in the business. A
flag.
mic flag. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Go right
nice.
there.
And
Yeah.
have the Bourbon Life logo like a triangular
Yeah.
three-sided.
I know where they make those.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, I might
'Cause,
have to.
We have some Lee and Hayley mic flags. Yeah,
Do you
so,
really?
yeah.
Okay. Well, I may have to. Yeah. We'll have to DM
May-
him.
Now,
DM me.
DM
may
me.
have to. That's happening for sure. Come on.
Oh man! All right, we're getting off track here, which is what we love to do. But yes, Matt, I will tell everybody what we poured up. So this has a little bit of a story behind it, and we'll get into that here in just a little bit. But we have poured up the Pappy Van Winkle, the 15-year-old. Of course, this is 15 years old. It's funny. I was making notes today, and I'm like, "What's the age on that? What's the age on that Pappy?" I was like, oh, "Jeez." Like, yes, it is 15 years old. Undisclosed mash bill, wheated mash bill though. So not really sure what the corn and wheat percentages are, but still, it's the wheated mash bill. Of course, this is the product that tons of people seek out and try to buy. So I was fortunate enough to pick up a bottle of this year. So I was very happy to get that and happy to share it with Lee Cruse for the second time.
Yes.
So
Technically my third.
yeah. So Lee, yeah. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But before we went to the break, you were going to share some tips with us about something, and I've already forgotten.
Oh yeah, well
what it was.
I'm the apostate that has come
Yep,
into
there you go.
the
Yes.
Bourbon Life podcast and talking about mixers. So what I do, my little secret is my favorite. If I'm going to mix bourbon, and let's just say it's not your top shelf, obviously. It's a Diet L8 that has gone flat.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
so-
you're a Winchester guy, so that makes perfect sense.
So that's Kentucky limestone, first of all. I know how they make the Diet L8. I've been there to the factory. Matter of fact, if you go tour the L8 One factory, I'm the guy who gives you the tour. I play Uncle Lee Rogers, I think is his name.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I play the guy who invented it.
Nice. Okay.
And so you get a little 10-minute description of how L8 came about.
For bracing pep. And
Right.
fat,
Yeah. And but if you let it go flat, it essentially becomes just a simple syrup.
Simple
kind
syrup,
of.
like a ginger
But
flavor,
it's still
little
got a little
gingery
bit
flavor.
of that L8 flavor. Yeah, very ginger flavor. It
Yeah.
works great because I don't like the carbonation in a cocktail
Right.
at all.
Okay.
So it works. You just open a Diet L8 can, chill, let it set out for a day or so.
Yeah.
Oh, you're uptown now.
That's really nice. And I don't do a lot of cocktails anymore. I do old fashions, but I wonder what that would taste like, because it would be ginger, but it would be sweet. So instead of simple syrup, if you use that in an old fashioned, it would be a kind of an interesting twist maybe on an old fashioned. But I don't do a lot of cocktails. Of course, back in the college days, it was mix everything with Coke or mix everything with Sprite. Right. But that was for purposes of getting to some place quickly, and I didn't like to drink straight bourbon back then, so I had to mix it with something and drink large quantities of bourbon.
You
with
just
that.
mix it with whatever else gets thrown into a bucket, some powdered Jello or something to give it some color, and
There you go. Whatever you're gonna do, right?
call it Harry Buff.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's nice, Matt. Very nice. So let's talk about what you pick up in terms of the profile on this one, Matt.
Oh, I thought you meant on the Harry Buffalo.
No. On the Pappy, on the 107, the 15, the Weller 107, right? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Pappy 15. Sorry,
How old is it?
I think it's 15 years old, Matt.
It's got a really luscious nose. Just it's one of the things I always appreciate about the nose on this is just how complete it is. It's got sweetness, definitely comes through from the wheat. There's a caramel, pick up the corn on it, but it's also got like some sort of an earthy umami, like kind of nutty flavor to almost like a briny type
Okay.
nose on it as well. Certainly oak. You can tell the age is there on it, but just like really rich, really deep, like some dark stone fruit almost, but just a really, really gorgeous nose. I think even if I hadn't known this was the 15-year Van Winkle, I think I would still really appreciate the nose
Yeah.
for what this is.
Yeah. And this, the bottle's about $200. And of course, on the secondary market, which is insane, people buy and sell this for like $2,200 or whatever, which is beyond my comprehension why someone would spend that much. I mean, it's a good bourbon, but it's not worth that much to me. But Lee, what do you? This is your third time.
Yeah, my third time. Explain that in a second. But I love this.
Yeah. Well, good.
I love it.
I'm
And
glad.
so I don't know how to describe it the way you boys do, but from a scientific standpoint, I'll try it this way. So when I drink this compared to another bourbon, and maybe it's the age, it seems to be bonded on a molecular level tighter than the other bourbon.
Okay.
I don't know what I mean when I'm telling you this, but I just know it is so encased
Yeah.
and tight.
Okay.
This is a weird way to describe it, which translates to me as smooth.
Okay.
So it's so freaking smooth as it goes down. It's not breaking up in any particulate.
But let's kind of break that down a little bit, because it is a wheated mash bill. So maybe that probably has something, I would think, to do with that, because the wheated mash bill is generally going to have kind of a creamier, fuller mouthfeel to
Yeah,
them.
the creamy's a good description too.
Yeah,
It
so
is
so you
good.
get that part of it, but you get the sweetness from the wheat as well. So like rye bread versus wheat bread. Rye bread's going to be spicy.
Right.
Wheat bread's going to have that sweeter profile to it. So I mean, that makes sense to me, I think. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, Lee, I really like the way you describe that, because oftentimes when I drink something that I really like, I like to think of it as complete. Like the flavors on it there's like no outliers, nothing, no weird random, like one little off note or off-putting aroma or flavor. Like everything is complete. It's got a good mouthfeel, a good flavor, and it's rich, it's full. What it smells like is usually what it tastes like.
Yeah.
It coats the mouth really well. Its game is tightened up.
If you were to use a visual descriptor, I mean, it would be like a beautiful automobile. That is, every nuts and bolts, the whole thing is so well put together.
Yeah.
You go, wow.
Yeah. Like an old vet, like a 57, 58 vet.
But it was
something like
well crafted and well made. You
Yeah.
just know that thing was from top to bottom, stem to stern, is just made perfect.
Oh yeah, and it's made by Buffalo Trace for the Van Winkle family. The Pappy Van Winkle's on the bottom. Julian, was that his name? Julian Van Winkle, I think.
You say Buffalo Trace, I got to say hi to Freddie.
There you go. Hey, he's
Love
going to be
Freddie.
on. A spoiler alert: he's going to be on the show in
really?
2 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah. So we're going to be thrilled. We've never had him on there.
I love Freddie.
I've met him a couple times, but we've never had him on the show. We've had Harlan, the master distiller, on the show, but we've never had Freddie. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, so Pappy Van Winkle is on the label on this, the 20-year-old and the 23-year-old as well. But his family still carries on the tradition. Buffalo Trace distills the product for them, and then they pick the barrels and they bottle it under the Van Winkle name. So, it used to be part of the Stitzel-Weller distillery back in the 80s and 90s. Those bottles you can't find hardly anymore, and if you do, they're going to be even probably twice as expensive as what these Buffalo Trace bottles are going to be. But still, it's an excellent expression, and I really enjoy it. I was so happy to get a bottle of that. It's my favorite out of the entire lineup of all the Pappy products. So other than the rye is really damn good. I don't know if you've ever had the rye or not, but
I don't know if I have either. I know I've asked you this question before, Mark and Matt. This is for the entire table, because for a novice like myself, bourbon becomes more valuable the more it ages up to a point.
Sure.
And then what is that cutoff point? Because at some point it's going to break down, right? It's not going to be as good. If I found a 100-year bottle of bourbon, it's not going to be that good, is it?
Well, if it's in a sealed bottle,
if it's in a bottle, so if it's sealed,
if it's still sealed,
well, the atmosphere cannot contaminate it.
You can still
as opposed to the barrel.
Oh, if it were in the barrel, it'd be.
Oh yeah, in the barrel, it would be
sludge.
awful.
Yeah,
yeah. You probably wouldn't have anything left.
Right.
In 100-year.
Okay,
barrel.
so there, the barrel is there has a gestation point where we have to get it out of the barrel at some point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the oldest that I know of is, well, in terms of bourbon, Scotch can go much longer because the aging conditions in Scotland are completely different than what they are here in Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
So they can go 40,
Scotch
50.
is just rocket fuel anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
We don't like Scotch, do we?
I'm really not a big fan of Scotch.
I'm not either.
I'm trying to.
I had a comic buddy of mine try to get me to drink Scotch. I was like, "What is this? 87 octane? This is awful."
I'm trying to open my mind to other spirits around the world. So
I tell you what else I don't like. I don't like sake. People try to get me to like sake. I don't like sake. Bourbon, I even when I was a novice and I didn't know anything about bourbon, I knew there was still a flavor profile to it. And maybe they have flavor profiles and I'm just being an idiot, but Scotch is way too much.
Yeah, I've got one bottle of Scotch and I bought it last week. My very first bottle of Scotch whiskey that I've ever owned, Lee. So I kind of agree with you on that one. But it is the biggest selling whiskey in the world. I mean, in terms of volume, Jack Daniel's is the #1 best-selling whiskey out there. Right. But Scotch by volume is the biggest selling type of whiskey out there at this point. I think bourbon's on the track to probably overtake that. So going back to talking about you.
Okay.
And talking about your show.
Yes.
Now, you do the show, but you guys are also actually on the news as well, correct?
Yes. We struck a deal with WTVQ, ABC 36. They wanted us to do their morning show. And I said no several times because of the hours, mainly. I mean, I want to focus on my show.
Yeah,
I want to grow it. I want to get more markets and live mine and Hayley's dream, I think, and do that. But they made a compelling argument eventually, and I went, well, okay. If you wanted me to do it for that, I didn't know. So then we started doing the morning show, and we have fun. And listen, I that's where I grew up. Right. Is in morning television.
Sure.
And I love that audience. There is an intimacy with people just waking up and getting out of bed that you don't have any other day part. And I am familiar with that part of broadcast, and we have fun. And we got a good crew around us. Our weather guy, who is a big bourbon fan, Dylan, by the way. I'm sure he's a fan of this podcast. I was
going to say, I was thinking about it today. I'm like, we have to give a shout out.
You should,
to Dylan and
let
make
me
fun
say
of him
hello
for not being here.
To my, if I'm Bruce Wayne, he's in my ward.
Nice,
Dylan Godet. But he's a connoisseur. Him and one of the producers, Tanton Kaiser, if that's a real name. They love bourbon, and those boys are big fans of the product.
Yeah,
and I'm sure they're going to be listening. So,
well, I hope they are, because Dylan's a good, nice guy. I met him a couple times when I was out there doing the show. And he got to sample the Lot B while he was out there. So I think he was very appreciative of that. But he follows us we follow each other on Instagram. But yeah, it just seems, I call him a kid. Obviously, he's a young guy, right? So
he is a kid. I think he's 26.
Yeah, so that's a kid, right?
Yeah, he's a kid.
But that's funny. So how do you balance? Because I mean, naturally, you and Hayley, your relationship, it's comedic, it's satirical. You guys are at each other all the time. But then you're doing the news show. I mean, how does that work? I mean, can you shut that off and be like, okay, we got to be serious a little bit, or is it?
Well, yes, I'm a human. So if I'm reading some disastrous tragedy, I think I have empathy while I'm reading. I'm not. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Most of the time, I'm looking for jokes. I'm not going to deliver those jokes. I'll deliver them off the air.
Right.
But I'm not going to do it at that moment because I know these are real people that are suffering. But I will say this. About that, my old photographer that I worked with for 17 years was a military vet. His name was Steve Collier, and he was in the Marines. He did tours in Iraq. He did tours in, at the time, Sarajevo. He was over there in what was the former Yugoslavia, and he gave me at the time, I didn't know what to think of it, but I do consider it a compliment now. And he said, "You're probably the most trusted man on television." And it irritated me because I just want to be a comic.
Right.
I want to be Johnny Carson. I don't want to be Tom Brokaw. That's not
right.
I still get angry when my publicist, Dan, says, "Hey, you're doing good with the news." Screw you, Dan. I don't want to do this. This is not my passion. I can do it. I can be proficient at it, I think. But Collier's point to me was, he goes, because of who you are, the way you point out BS as a comic, a comedian.
Right.
He goes, people tend to believe you when you say this is wrong or this is right.
Right.
And you're not being funny at that moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. If we look back at some of the national tragedies that we had, whether it was 9/11, and you saw what Letterman did in those moments, you saw what Jon Stewart did, you saw how SNL handled it, those were sort of the gauges and thermometers of, are we okay?
Yeah.
And I'm not putting myself on that kind of level, but I think there are times I have imposter syndrome because, as you just pointed out, Hayley has a news background. She's a journalist. She has a degree. She knows what she's doing. She's qualified to do this. So you can trust Hayley. But when I'm sitting next to her and we're doing these stories about tragedy, I have a little bit of imposter syndrome, but I think about what Steve told me. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, I have empathy and sympathy, and I can deliver this and be serious at that moment.
Yeah,
if I have to be.
The thing about you, Lee, I mean, you've been on TV for so long, and you were the morning guy, and I was actually part of a group. It was called Sweet Blessings, and you came out and did a live remote.
Oh, I love that organization.
Yeah, so I was on their board. You came out to the church where they made the cakes and hung out with us that morning. So, but you do that, and you were you're like Mr. Lexington. I mean, everybody knows who Lee Cruse is, and recognizes you from doing that. So I can understand what he means when he says that you're the trusted guy, because people knew you and people saw you every morning, right?
No, it was a privilege for me to get to feature folks like Sweet Blessings. These guys are making birthday cakes for kids that may not get a birthday cake. And you think about that one little gesture, how that changes that child's life. And I get to tell that story. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No, I love doing that. My job was, as I saw it, I think a lot of people sometimes a few people misunderstood me that I'm there to make fun of. I'm making fun of myself more than anybody. But what I try to do is make it palatable.
Right.
So everybody gets a fair shot at telling their story.
Yeah.
So if I can do that with humor, if I can infuse humor to make it enjoyable to watch no matter what the subject is, then I feel like I've accomplished it.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think humor is something that's very valuable that people sometimes overlook, that it can be, at least for me, I mean, that's the way I deal with a lot of issues in life, is through humor. I'm the big funny guy. I mean, that's the way I've always been.
What's the thing that somewhat separates us from the animals, although dogs are pretty daggone funny.
So, Lee, so you are a bourbon guy. Have you always been a bourbon drinker? Have you always been
No.
a fan of bourbon, or is
No.
it something? Okay.
I didn't even start drinking alcohol till I was 30.
No.
True.
No,
I may
seriously?
have had a wine cooler at a party.
Bartles and James.
Yeah, something like that in college. I was a teetotaler, you know. But as I started doing stand-up comedy, my mentor, Scott Wilson, who is anyone who's been in Lexington, Kentucky, had been a comedy off Broadway. He's the house MC, and he's the big, tall guy. Scott, you know, where you learn the craft is not necessarily where you learn the business, and the craft is at the bar. It's not on stage necessarily. I mean, you're developing jokes on stage, but but you got to drink if you're going to hang out with these guys. And so I'm like, I don't drink, you know, I don't know what to do here. And so Scott got me started with White Russians. He goes, "You like chocolate milk?" Yeah,
Fair enough.
I do.
Yeah.
Actually,
I mean, seriously, yeah.
And I went, "Well, this is great."
I love it. Yeah.
So
Give me three more of these.
So that was my gateway. I didn't, and I may have told you this story, Mark. I didn't really appreciate bourbon. Occasionally I would have it, but I stayed away from it until the Four Roses master distiller came on the show with me and Hayley.
Okay.
And he, you know, I started the whole, "What do you mix this with?" He goes, "Don't you dare mix this." He goes, you know, and Four Roses is one of my favorites. I
Is
mean,
it? Okay.
Small batch I love. You know.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Try this." And then he sounds like Matt over here. He starts telling me about the profile and what it does. And I'm sipping it and I'm understanding what he means at that moment. It was my epiphany of bourbon. I'm like, "Oh my goodness. Yeah, I see this now. I see what it's about." That was my aha moment. Okay. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I am every week with Matt. You know, once he starts giving his descriptors, I'm like, "Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's why I like this.
I get it." Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. I got it.
Yeah.
I got it, and I tell you what happened. He gave me a bottle. I took it behind the weather wall, and I thought I have discovered bourbon, and everyone has to share this with me. So I went and got Nancy Cox. I go, "Nancy, have you had this?" And so I'd sneak her behind the weather wall. We go in this little cubby hole, and I'd pour her a shot.
Oh.
And I go, "Hey, Bill Meck. Hey,
Yeah.
Bill, you got to try this." And I'd take him back there, and we'd pour. So I was doing shots with the entire staff. I was hammered by 4 p.m., but I love bourbon.
But you love bourbon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there you go.
That was
But
my moment.
Now you're drinking it neat. Is that the way you just started drinking it once you discovered it? Or
I'm an
did you-
old-fashioned guy, though.
Are you?
I do
Oh, yeah.
love old
Yeah.
fashions. I love the craft of making it old-fashioned. You know, there's a few folks like the boys over at Jake's. They know how to do it. Jake's Cigar Bar.
Right,
They know
right.
how to make a good one. You know.
Yeah.
And, but I know I do love it neat, especially if I got something special like what you guys have.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, we're very happy that you were able to share that with us.
It took me a while to get to the point where I was drinking
Sure.
it neat.
Yeah.
And I think in the start, I would, of course, mix it in college and growing up just because it tasted so terrible. I just needed to get it down the gullet faster. Mm-hmm. And then started slowly with like a little bit of, because my dad was a Scotch drinker, so I always knew about Scotch on the rocks. And yeah, at a young age in high school, I think he scared the Scotch out of me by pouring me a glass one night.
Oh yeah. It's like, "Here, taste this."
Yeah, more
That's
or
like
less.
finish that cigar, son.
Yeah.
Yeah. Till you turn green.
Exactly. Scared the Scotch out of me at a young age. And
Nice.
So I started with bourbon that way with a little bit of ice and trying to make it as sufferable as possible. And
Sure.
just stuck with it.
Well, the good thing about being the boss, which I love,
Yeah,
by
right.
the way, I can't go back. I'm never going to work for anybody again. But now that I'm the boss of the company, I have bourbon in the office.
Nice.
A couple of bottles you gave me, by the way.
Well,
and
very
that
nice.
I enjoy very neat.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, we'll have to come over and visit sometime.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And drink some of those bourbons. But we are actually at the end of round 2. So, final thoughts on the Van Winkle, the Pappy 15, Matt.
That's great. It's a little warmer than I thought, actually, on the end of the palate. Brings a little bit more heat, a little bit more cinnamon, a little more spice, especially for the weeded mash
For the
bill.
weeded, yeah.
Yeah, but just a really great, complete bourbon from nose to palate to finish, oily mouth coating, just drinks really well.
And Matt, can I just say how nice you look behind that mic with that mic plate on there? I don't know if I've mentioned that today.
I can't see it. I've tried.
Anyway. Lee, what about you? What do you think? Now, for the third time trying the 15.
I love it so much I've taken my pants off.
Oh my God, Matt! He's just like you, right? Matt,
Well, I put my pants on tonight.
You put your pants on. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I usually don't have pants on.
When are we going to tell the story of me enjoying it for the third time?
We'll come back. We'll do that in the third round.
The third round is a tease. See,
yeah. We'll come back. It's a cliffhanger, right? That's what we're going to call it. That's the cliffhanger to come back and hear this
I
story.
got something hanging on my nose.
That's a bat in the cave. Speaking of Batman, right? No. Oh. Anyway, guys, let's take a quick break. Get a word from our sponsors. We'll be back with more with Lee Cruse in just a minute. From our good friends at The Stave comes Lexington's newest hot spot to meet up with friends, have fun, and eat some great food. District 7 Social is a social and beer hall, but it's a lot more than that. Located in Lexington's Distillery District, it's the home of Lexington's first duck pin bowling lanes, and it also features a self-serve beer wall. That's right, self-serve. And if you want more, they've got it. You can try one of their delicious cocktails from the bar or order some great German fusion food from their on-site eatery, Germanish. So what are you waiting for? Be seen, be social. District 7 Social. All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. And with me tonight live down here in the Bourbon Life Studios around the Flights to the Round Table, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing, man?
Mark, I'm doing great. I'm always excited to be sitting around the big table here.
Yeah, it's so much fun to do this live versus doing it on the computer. I always love it when we can sit down here with our guests, even though we don't make them put lotion on or anything weird like that at the table. So we've been able to attract a lot more guests since we stopped doing that.
That's right. Yeah. I've got nothing clever to say about that. You're absolutely right.
See, yeah. So tell everybody who we have with us.
Absolutely. He is the whichever half you want to call it of the Lee and Hayley Show.
The better half.
Yeah.
The handsome
At least
half.
I show up.
The drunken half. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's true. Most of the time. Yeah, she was invited, but she didn't make it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Lexington, Lee Cruse.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back for round 3, Lee.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking around. We appreciate you not leaving.
Most people leave after round 2.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. They're just like, no, we're not going to do this anymore. They take their peaches and they just go on home.
Yeah. Usually by then they've sniffed out the fact that we're like completely not legit.
Yeah.
That we're not actually recording anything.
Yeah, we're just playing.
I just sniffed that out when I walked in the door, but I still stayed because of the bourbon.
Yeah, it's like, I wonder what he's going to give me. And then you saw the randomly scattered bottles everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those vacation, like you go and you listen to a thing for a timeshare, but they give you like a free meal or like a voucher.
Tickets to a show.
That's right. Yeah. You get free shit.
You have to go to like a 4-hour
That's right. Yeah.
pitch, and then they
Congratulations, Lee.
call you for the rest of your life.
I've actually fallen for that.
I've done it as well.
Yeah.
I got free tickets to Dollywood for my kids to go listen to a pitch.
Yeah.
Anyway, so hey, Lee, we left the cliffhanger. Let's jump back and talk about the Pappy Van Winkle, because you and I did a segment for the Lee and Hayley Show together. I guess it was back in January.
Yeah.
Over at OBC Kitchen here in Lexington.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. So we cracked open that bottle of Pappy.
What was the segment about, by the way?
What was it about?
Yeah, just to talk us through.
Oh, we were just talking about bourbon in general. Okay. And Lee and
again, I tell you what it was supposed to be about. I think it was supposed to be tutelage on how to appreciate
that's
bourbon.
Right. It was right.
But Hayley again didn't show up.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So it's just me and Mark.
Yeah. So that was the plan. It was going to be, I think we were going to do tastings, because I brought a few things, or I was going to bring a few things. They were going to taste them, give tasting notes, and then I was going to kind of judge you guys.
Yeah.
I believe that was kind of the original plan. And then turns out Hayley couldn't make it. So I had that bottle of Pappy, hadn't opened it yet. So I took it over to share with Lee. And during the segment, Lee, he drank the entire drink, put it in his mouth, and then spit it back in his glass. And I was not sure what he was doing. And then after that, Lee, I posted that little bit of that clip of the video on social media, and people went absolutely nuts about that, dude. Yeah. They were just like,
I don't blame them.
I can't believe he did that. Why would he do that? I can't believe he would. And I was like, look, you got to understand, this is, it's entertainment. It's fun. We're having a good time. And you explained to me after the fact that that's something kind of a bit.
Yeah.
So
it's a bit I stole, actually, which we're not supposed to do in the comedy business.
Sure.
But there's a very funny guy, a character comic named Ricky Mokel, and I've seen him do that, where someone will buy him a shot, and he'll put the entire thing in his mouth as the audience cheers as his bravado to do this shot. And he's standing there, and it looks like it's gone, and then all of a sudden it comes back out into the glass, and he says the phrase, "That's going to be good."
yeah. And I think you even said that, right?
Yeah, I stole that.
Sure.
His real name is Grant Turner. Thank you, Grant, for the. I stole that from Grant, but it's his bit. But I've seen things like that before.
Yeah.
But it's Pappy, and I thought, I don't know if anybody's ever done this with Pappy.
Right.
I gotta try it.
It was
So
great.
I did it.
Well, it was funny because had Hayley been here, I was going to ask her. At that point, there was a time in that little segment, because it was only like 4 minutes long. I consider myself to be a pretty smart guy, pretty witty at times, but I felt like I was kind of hanging on for dear life because I don't know where you're going, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to follow along. And you and Hayley have that great relationship where you both just kind of play off of each other.
Yeah.
Is that something that's just kind of come naturally for you guys?
Yeah, no, it was intuitive immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, when we met each other. So and that's rare. I don't know that anyone else experiences that kind of level of trust.
Yeah.
Essentially, we're really trying to break each other. And I mean that in a good way. We're trying to make the other one laugh. And there is this intuitive thing where I see the sparkle in her eye or vice versa, and here we go. And let's see how far we can go with this, whether it's depravity or it's just shock and surprise, and let's just go down this pathway. Now, usually I'll win that because I have no standards. She does. There's a part of her who still thinks all of this is a sham, and I need to be a serious news person.
I'm a news person.
Right.
I can't do this, right?
So
Yeah.
But, I mean, she's very capable of holding her own with me at any moment.
Sure.
Yeah.
And she does. Anybody that's seen the show, I mean, you know that she does a great job at that. So I applaud her. And had she been here tonight, I was going to applaud her as well for that, because during that segment, just a brief 4 minutes, like I said, I mean, sometimes I felt like I was kind of hanging on for dear life because I didn't know where things were going. And when you did that bit with the Pappy, I was just like, the reaction was very realistic. I mean, it was just like, Lee, what are you doing?
Well, I saw the fear in your eyes that you're going to die if you take all of that alcohol that quickly.
Right.
I think I may have done something similar. I was at Wilderness Trail.
Oh, yeah.
And they gave us the tour, and I forgot, maybe it's Jared who walked us around. I can't remember. But and they took us to the part before it's put into the barrel.
Uh-huh.
Where it's the
white dog?
The white dog.
Uh-huh.
And he poured a glass where that is where it's really lethal.
Right.
And I did the exact same thing. and I thought they were going to have to revive him.
Yeah.
Because he thought, I'm going to swallow this and it's going to kill him.
Yeah, Jared, right? Jared Smith?
Yes.
Yes.
He was on our show. Yeah.
He's an athlete.
He is.
Yeah,
He's an ultra runner.
He's an ultra runner.
And
ultra runner.
Do you know what
that's
he
right.
does? Do you know what his secret is? Tell him what the secret is.
Yeah, so his secret in like these long 50-mile or whatever races, or when you get to that dark point,
Right.
he brings out the flask.
Does he?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's
Reaches
one way.
for the rocket fuel.
He'll take bourbon or whatever, rye whiskey bourbon.
And that's legal, I assume?
Who's going to disqualify you like mile 40 something in a 50-mile race for drinking?
It's like I've been running through a mountain
Yeah.
for the last 6 hours, 8 hours, or 10 hours, or
I don't
whatever.
know if they give you an RUI running under the influence or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's his like secret weapon.
Well,
So
he's
he'll-
just
he'll
crazy.
He'll take a shot, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that, man, because I can't imagine drinking whiskey at that point. But hey, it works
Well,
for him.
I can't even imagine running to that point. So I suppose like you might as well drink whiskey if you're going to make it that far.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right. He and Haley both, because Haley's
Haley
she's
does
in
the
the
ultra
ultra
as well,
marathons
yeah.
as well. That she works down there. So yeah, great people. We had them on the show, but that's funny. Yeah, it's just,
I knew you guys weren't talking about my Haley. She wouldn't get up off the couch to get the remote.
yeah. It's like
I don't know what you're talking about.
3 channels when you're a kid, and you're the remote, right?
Yeah,
when you're
exactly,
a kid. It's like get up off the couch and go change that. Matt, let's talk about what we're drinking here, man. You brought this tonight, so tell everybody what we have here.
Isn't that like one of the ways to see who the alpha is in the relationship? Like when you and your partner sit down on the couch and the light is left on, like whoever goes up to turn off the light, look back at the couch, and the person sitting on the couch is
alpha.
Yeah, the alpha dog.
Funny. I didn't know that.
Right?
That could be. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Anyway.
Nice. Anyway, Matt, I don't know where we're going with that one.
Yeah, me neither. So sorry about that, everybody. But anyway, what we're drinking here, we have got from the Starlight Distillery. This is a single barrel of the Huber's Indiana Straight Rye Whiskey. And this is a Liquor Barn store pick coming in at 114.2 proof and at least 5 years old.
Nice.
So nice pot distilled, heritage farm grown Indiana Starlight Distillery rye whiskey here.
Man, those guys are really taking off too. I mean, they're getting a lot of notoriety, a lot of awards as well.
No doubt.
And we had, I'm drawing a blank on his
I
name.
knew you were going to look over.
Damn it.
I can picture him. I remember the podcast as well. But
I hate when I do that, man.
yeah, just blanking on the name, but we had a good time with them.
Yeah, we did. Had them on the show. So, and all the products they're putting out are just really, really spectacular, I think. So, Matt, I've not even nosed it enough, to be honest.
Well, I'll take a stab at it.
Go ahead.
It's got the really nice herbal, vegetal rye grains, like a lot of grassiness, thyme, lemon balm, a little bit of mint on the nose as well. Then there's a sweetness, like a deepness that's coming across to a little depth of some corn and caramel as well, a little barrel influence with it. Just a nice, like very, very typical of like an earthy herbal rye nose, like really nicely done.
Yeah.
On the nose.
Now, Lee, are you a rye drinker? Are you a fan of rye whiskey? Or?
Yeah, no, I'll do rye. Sure.
All right.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Good. Have you nosed that one?
I have nosed that, and I have hints of grandmother's bathroom. You know, the good one that she doesn't let me use.
That's right.
But it smells great in there. My uncle's attic where he smokes cigars, a little bit of that. So a tobacco hint.
There you go.
Yeah, all the good things.
All the good things. You know, it's funny, on the show we did with Elizabeth McCall, I said something that the Woodford rye reminded me of being in church and reaching into my mom's purse and getting a piece of gum, because you open up the purse and it smells like leather. Yeah. It smells like mint.
Right.
It's like there's tissues in there that smell the same. I mean, it's kind of weird, that minty aroma that comes out of a purse, your mom's purse in church, but
only in church.
But only in church, because I would never get in my mom's purse any other time.
But that's great, though. Even the articulate Matt has to appreciate
There
that.
you go, Matt. You had to appreciate that, right? Come on. That
I do.
That I said that. I said
Because
something other
it's
than caramel. and vanilla.
connectivity. I mean,
Right, and that's what.
that's all it's about. Because if you boys have seen the wonderful film called Ratatouille from Disney, and the food critic, when he sits down, what is he looking for? Connectivity. It brought him back to his childhood.
Right. And to me, and they make fun of me because I'll talk about my leather baseball glove, just aromas that I get off of whiskey,
Right.
Topps bubblegum baseball cards, the gum that came in there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get that aroma off of the whiskeys that I drink. So a lot of things that relate back. But that was the first time I've had something that made me, I mean, I just envisioned myself sitting on that hard church pew and open up my mom's purse.
That's wonderful for you.
Yeah.
Does it impress anybody? No, it doesn't. No, it's very sad, actually, Mark, that you would describe it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But nonetheless, we're very happy for you.
I appreciate
But
that.
from now on, please let Matt do the descriptors.
Yeah, I think Matt is just, well, that's why, I mean, he's the talent, right? He's the color commentary guy. I'm just here to
Again, I am the Ed McMahon to your Johnny.
speaking of comedy. So Lee,
Correct, sir.
So this is something you knew from a young age then that you wanted to do. Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't want to do anything other than that. You know, I didn't have any ambition to do anything other than that. You know,
A lot of people go to school for 7 years, right? But they're called doctors. But anyway, that's
right.
Yeah.
But I was there. My respect and desire and love was for guys that were making people laugh.
Yeah.
Physicians of the soul. as I like to describe
I like
them.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, those guys. I was a big fan of Johnny Carson and David Letterman, and I love their work, and that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah. So when you guys coming up with like segments for your show, I mean, where does that come from? Just things that you think of, things that you see, things that inspire you, or
solicitation, where people want to give
Please send
me
me
dollars,
yeah.
and I will put you on TV.
There you go.
That's pretty much it. No, we've been so lucky to hire wonderful producers. Noah Day and Bridget Howard and Nikita Jennings, and then we've got fabulous photographers and editors that work with us. Noah Hall and Caleb Gillum. Those guys are wonderful, and they're magic at creating magic at putting things together that makes it palatable for a national audience. The challenge for me is that, yes, I'm a Kentucky-based show, and I'm a very proud Kentuckian, and I love my home, but I have to export a product that can be seen in North Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, and soon, hopefully, Indiana, where early in the spring and then hopefully Florida and South Carolina later, but it has to play there. So I have to make it generic enough that it doesn't alienate them.
Right.
Those people.
Yeah.
So I can't, if Kentucky basketball or football does well, I have to bite my tongue. I really can't dance in the end zone. I have to keep my mouth shut, but still sell the show. And I'm telling you, most of the mail and comments we get right now is from North Carolina. It's not from Kentucky.
Really?
Well, Winston-Salem and Greensboro is a bigger market. And so
And you're number one.
And we're number one in our time slot there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, most of the love that we're getting is coming from that area. So I have to be cognizant of that at all time.
Now, you guys do travel for the show, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So how often and how do you guys work that out to do the travel, to go down, and then also doing what you're doing with TVQ? I mean, how does all that play out?
Haley calls Greyhound and says, we need
a bus.
We need a bus. No, we schedule things out. So it's a TV show schedule. So we run reruns and all that. But we try to take the entire crew with us to tape, because I want it to be exciting. I want to create a work environment where people really want to work for us, to have fun. And we have a great time when we go on the road. And we usually go on the road when we open a new market. So we want to welcome that city and that market into the Lee and Hayley Show family, and showcase them to the other markets that are already part of us. And that's worked for us so far.
Yeah.
And we're usually welcomed, and then it takes off from there.
Now, one of our guys on the crew wanted me to ask you that, because you do stand up.
And the crew? Who's the crew?
They're not here tonight, but I messaged the crew, and I'm like, hey.
Talk to the friends that Mark keeps talking
friends,
about that he hangs out in the basement.
my imaginary friends.
Thank you, Matt. I got it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah.
they wanted me to ask, because you've done stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Are you still doing stand-up, or
Yes.
will you? Okay, all right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if people want to see you, can they find you doing that, or are you still?
I'll be in Cincinnati in April sometime, but I think it's the Kenwood Country Club. So I don't know that they'll let you in.
Sir, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Come on.
But, this is one of the things.
Bushwood? Bushwood? Come on.
I love Caddyshack.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I know if you just follow us on social media, you'll see where I'll be appearing.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good.
We like to incorporate that into the travel schedule that we talked about. Is like,
Right.
when we go to some of these cities, we also do a comedy show. So
Okay. So does Hayley do it? Does she do comedy?
no,
Okay. I didn't know. I was
I
like,
do let.
but she could. I think she could. I think you guys.
No.
Oh, she. Okay.
No.
All right.
There's a whole nother. That's a whole nother skill set.
Okay, all right.
There's living room funny, and then there's professional funny.
She doesn't rise to that level. Okay.
No,
All right.
because she doesn't have the desire to do it. Could she? Yes, she has the talent, obviously, but it's a discipline
I gotcha. Okay.
to work out the material.
Yeah,
and the main thing is to die. You have to die 1,000 deaths to where you're impervious. If something doesn't go right, you're
man.
okay.
Yeah,
you're
you're
going to be okay. Haley's not willing to do that.
Yeah,
she ain't
she'd
gonna put the
take it
work in.
personally, right?
Oh,
It'd be like,
absolutely.
skin's
She'd
not
take
take
it.
it.
Yeah, she would. Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
Those Tennesseans.
But now she has gone. I will let her open a show.
Oh,
And she'll go
really?
up and greet the audience where
Yeah.
it's a safe space. I'm not a comic. She'll make sure she says that. Right. And then she'll start taking digs at me the entire time, So it's a very cheat code that she's developed, without the work.
So one of the funniest things that I saw when I was doing some notes for the show, I typed in Hayley's name, and the first thing that popped up under Google was, are Lee and Hayley married?
Yes. As far as I know, we are not.
You're not. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But does that come up? I mean, people ask
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys
People,
that all the time.
I think they always assume that because of the closeness of the relationship
Sure.
on their chemistry.
Right.
I think they think that.
I think you guys, I mean, it's almost like your siblings. It's really unique, that relationship that you guys have, because because I have an older brother, and it reminds me of that relationship where we just pick, and it's sarcasm, and it's the wittiness and the banter back and forth. Right. So I think a lot of people feel comfortable with that because they can relate that to their own maybe family relationships.
Yeah, no, I there are moments that when Hayley and I get into a faux fight. And sometimes it's not so faux. Sometimes there's some heat behind.
It could be a mofo, right?
Yeah, it could be a real mofo because there may be something behind the scenes that has brought this out on the air, and it's playing in real life. I feel a responsibility at times to defend guys because we have that sort of domesticated dynamic where she's given the female perspective and I'm given the guy's perspective. One of the things I love to do to amuse myself, really, it's just for me. But there's these moments where Hayley has me pinned. She thinks she's won the argument, and I will look at the camera and I'll go, "Watch this." I will say that out loud. And I'll still get crushed, but I still love, like, I've got this figured out.
Right.
Hey, all you husbands out there, I want you to watch how to handle.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, it is a very hold my beer moment. Yeah, watch this.
Yeah. And it doesn't work out.
It usually doesn't.
Yeah, I get it. But
you guys, those are like famous last words right there. Yeah,
exactly right.
In more than one way.
But it's funny how like you guys are competitive with one another, but it's not competitive to win. It's like competitive to beat the other one down.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, that's the most important thing. Make sure they lose.
Yeah, that's right. Make sure the other side loses. Yeah. So let's talk about, Matt, what you got poured up here for us in terms of the palate and the finish. What do you get on this one?
It's got those really nice rye herbal notes, again, right on the front of the palate. It actually opens a little spicy, a little cinnamon, kind of a crisp, like cinnamon apple. There's some green apple, I think, for me on the front of the palate. Then those rye spices and the herbs come through, kind of like grassiness, a little bit of dill, thyme, lemon balm, just like really nice herbal notes. Then a long finish with the barrel influence coming through as well, almost like a little orange or apricot too, near like the tail end before like a long spicy finish, but really well done.
Lee, I see you're shaking your head, and
it's like I'm walking down the aisle of Kroger. This guy's just naming stuff that he sees in the produce section.
I get radishes. Wait, there's some green peppers. No, I agree. I mean, Matt,
look at there. I taste a Keurig.
Yeah,
it's impressive what he does.
That's how I do. You just go to garage.
So, here's a question for you, Matt. What is the sparkle? What happens if you can describe it in a physiological way? Like when you drink something, and I only really experience it with bourbon. I don't experience it with any other type of alcoholic beverage. So when I sip on a bourbon and something like ping, that spark that comes off the tongue, usually on the left side, I wonder what that is.
For me, I'll get it on like gin. I think is like a really botanical spirit that I pick up a lot of like distinct flavors. But for bourbon, it's kind of like Mark is saying, a lot of it is memory. So like this one just takes me back to cooking like fresh herbs.
No, I'm not talking about a memory. I'm talking about an actual electric arc that happens in my mouth.
Where do I feel it?
Yeah.
I like the way you raise your eyebrows when you said that. Where do I feel it?
Yeah.
Lee, here's some lotion, Lee, just in case.
This is like a top of the front top of the palate, front top of the tongue for me. Like not the tip, but
Yeah, it's not the tip.
We're not playing just the tip here.
No,
it's
a little past there.
Yeah, a little past
Yeah.
there. Yeah, a little deeper in there. So
Thank God there's not a fourth hour.
oh goodness gracious here. Woo. All right, Lee, what's been the best part of this journey for you so far in terms of your show and what you're doing?
Well, I'd like to say getting paid, but that hasn't happened yet. Honestly, it's creating a family that goes on this adventure with me, because it really is my idea and it's my passion, and I've found these allies that want to help me achieve it, and I get to take care of them, and we're going after this one goal. I'm like I said, my dad was a basketball coach, so I love team sport, and it feels like a sport to some degree. And we're taking on these challenges of new markets and trying to find ways to, hopefully people love our show and that they become addicted to it and they want to watch and go on this journey with us. And it's fun to have people root for you, but it's mainly about the people that are in the arena with me and fighting. And I love that camaraderie. And it's Hayley and Noah and Bridget and Nikita and Caleb and Nua, we call them, those guys, and the administrative people that are there for me, that support me, Richard and Sandy and Dan. I love those guys so much. And Allie up in Ohio doing social media. They're just wonderful that they when all of that happened to me, and back at the old place, I didn't know what to do at first until I started to figure it out. And then when I did, I went and asked them, would you want to give sort of that Tom Cruise, Jerry Maguire moment,
Right.
Who's with me?
Who's with me? Yeah.
And they were with me.
Nice.
And they left a very comfortable job to come on an unknown adventure to do this. And so far, it has paid off for all of them. And I want to keep going and make it even beyond even my dreams.
That's awesome, man. I mean, congratulations for having the nerve and the guts to chase your dream. I mean that's something that a lot of people don't do, Lee. So
I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
If the thing that everybody thought was disastrous, including me, didn't happen, I would have been comfortable and roasted in the pot that was boiling. But I was kicked out of it, and I had to create and develop it myself, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how, it's like serendipity. It is. It's kind of strange how things work out.
Necessity is the mother of all invention.
There you go.
It is.
It definitely is. So looking forward to the future, Lee, what does that look like for you and for your show? What do you hope it looks like?
25-year-old Hooters girl. But other than that, I
love their chicken sandwiches. Just love
no, you know what? I don't really care, honestly. As long as I can take care of my people, and we're having fun, I'm happy. If we get all the markets in America, that's great. That's what we're pushing for. But if we just stay where we are and we're entertaining the folks because I will tell you, Mark, the crazy thing is, I was very selfish when I launched, and I thought, okay, I don't even mean this iteration. The first version of it was like, I get to do my thing, and I get to be funny, and I get to live up my dream. But then I started getting emails about from folks. And I swear to you, and I've got dozens and dozens of them where, hey, my mom was battling throat cancer and she passed, but the 1 hour where she didn't think about her pain was watching you and Hayley laugh.
Wow.
And then I get from my dad or my spouse or, you got me through this tough time, dark time. And all of a sudden you start to feel the responsibility of that. Like, I'm just goofing off, but good Lord, these people kind of depend on it. And I understood that because, when I was a little kid and my parents were divorced or going through the divorce, I'd lock myself in my room and I'd watch Mel Brooks, I'd watch David Letterman or Johnny Carson, and I'd escape.
Yeah.
And I know I get to provide that same service.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I love that job.
Yeah, that's awesome, Lee. kudos to you for doing what you love and having the opportunity to do it, man. So that's That's great. So, guys, we're at the end of the podcast. Kind of ran over a little bit, but that's great because I love sharing stories and great conversation and great drinks. Final thoughts, though, Matt, on the Huber's Starlight.
I think it's great. A good representation of kind of the herbal, grassy, natural side of rye whiskey, I think.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, man. Thanks for bringing that. Appreciate it because I was going to open another bottle up, so I'm glad I didn't have to do that.
That's right. Save it for next time.
That's right, man. All right. So before we wrap it up, Matt, any final thoughts?
Lee, thanks for taking the time to come over here and hang out with us and chill in the not creepy basement.
Yeah, thanks.
And we enjoyed it. We really did.
I love hanging out with you boys.
Yeah, we're sorry that Hayley couldn't make it, but
No, I'm not.
I'm not either.
I needed a break.
At this point, that's twice, and I'm just like, no, I'm not. I'm over it. Man.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
I'm just happy that Lee came over, man. So Lee, final thoughts? Anything you want to add before we wrap it up and close it out?
Well, again, like I said, I'm grateful, and thanks to the folks of Kentucky who really made all of this possible. Because if it wasn't for the state backing me, I don't know where I would be. But it was all those folks that reached out to me and said, "Hey, we got your back." And because of that, I'm exporting a Kentucky product across the nation now, and I'll never forget where I came from.
Yeah, that's comes from Gunchester, Kentucky, as we call it, man. But that's great, Lee, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you coming.
Appreciate you boys
hanging out in the basement with us and sharing some pours. Hopefully, you got some things that you enjoyed tonight.
Yeah.
Hanging out with us. So
I thought that'd be Indiana sludge, but I like it.
Yeah, it's not half bad.
That's
right?
not bad at all. That's right. Yeah. So we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by VisitLEX. So we appreciate their support and their sponsorship. We also appreciate all of our other sponsors, everything they do for us. We appreciate you guys, our listeners. Thank you all for tuning in. Like Matt said, whatever time of day it is, morning, noon, or night, whenever it is, thanks for taking some time and listening to what we're doing. We'd love to hear from you guys as well. You can send us messages on Instagram or Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can join our private Facebook group at The Bourbon Lifers. We're about, 2,000 members strong now, so feel free to jump in there and join us. We do some fun things in there. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can email us at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you have any suggestions for shows, anything you'd like to hear from us, or just questions in general, we're always happy to answer those for you. If you feel so inclined, we'd love for you to leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. And with that said, I want to wrap it up. Send us on with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.